Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's workshop. So this morning we are focusing on the reporting side of things. So the topics that we are intending to go through this morning, we're going to go through the main reporting in PPS and also the custom forms reporting. We'll touch onto that. We're going to explore the reports wizard first of all. That will include how to run the basic stock reports, how to kind of tailor those reports to your own standards. And then we're also going to go through how to export that data so that you can use it for closer analysis. We'll touch upon a few key reports such as diary occupancy, non-returners, and the clinical stats. And we'll also run through the stock levels and the practitioner commission side of things. At the end, we'll also go through, as I say, the custom form reporting. With regards to the online workshop, you do have an attendee chat, so that will be manned this morning. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them through and we'll do our best to answer them there and then. Any questions that we might need to answer in a little bit further detail, we'll get back to you outside of the webinar. And the workshop this morning is being recorded, so we will be able to send you after today's workshop a link to be able to re-watch this. So don't feel like you'll have to note down everything that we're doing this morning. You'll be able to re-watch to go through it again. So first thing that we're going to do is open up our PPS system, and we're going to focus on this area here, which is the reports section. The first section here is reports and mail merge. And when we open up here, you'll see we're opening up into a series of different tabs. The first tab takes us to our favourites reports. Now, the favourite reports within PPS are things that you can build yourself, and you can add them as a favourite with your own requirements already pre-built in them, so your own criteria. So it just saves you from having to, if it's let's say a daily report, for example, saves you from having to run it every time and put your own flavour into it every time. So you'll start to see this build up as you go along with PPS, and we'll go through how to add to this in a moment. The first section we're going to focus on is this client section. Now, as I say, you'll see a series of different tabs. So you've got client, activity, accounts, a clinical, appointments, and third party. So each one of these will just go into further detail of each section, for example. So with the client one, you'll see we have a list of a few stock reports just to get us going. So we've got the client list, then we have clients that have registered with no activity records, clients with no appointments, charges or consultations, and so on. So with each of these stock reports, the benefit of using PPS reporting is that you'll have the reports wizard, and that means that you can tailor it to your own requirements. So first of all, if we were to just click onto the client list report, at the very bottom here, we've got run and open. Now the run option will just give you a date selection. So it will just give you all of your clients within a particular date range, for example. With the open option, that will give us more kind of custom options. So you'll see this opens up into our reports wizard. And this gives us the ability to put our own stamp on it, so to be a bit more particular about what information we're getting out. Now, again, with the reports wizard in PPS, it's the same throughout any report you try to run. So you won't have to learn different kind of sections for each report. It will be the same reports wizard for each one. So first of all, we're presented with the select screen. And the select screen is just asking you, do you want to show clients under a particular practitioner, and do you want to show clients that occurred in a particular date range? So, for example, we could say only show clients that were under Alan Davies, so only one particular practitioner. Alternatively, we've got the occurrences at the bottom here. Now, occurrences are useful for non-returners, for example. So we could say, only show me where their last ever occurrence. And what we're saying occurrence here means if they had an appointment in the diary, or if they had a consultation, or if they had accounts raised within PPS. So only show me where their last ever occurrence, and then we would move into our date range to say, occurred in this particular date range. So you could do 6 months previous, for example. Next step along, we're going to go into our date range. So this here again is just our basic date range. So we can say, only show me clients under this month or clients that were registered last month and so on. In our breakdown selection, we can now be more particular. So if I were to just click finish at this point, all it's going to show me is every client that was registered in this month date range. Under the breakdown selection, I can be more particular. So I can say only show me, break it down by charge type or birthday month or age, whatever information you want to kind of break down by. So if I went for break it down by age and then by, let's go for sex, that's going to allow me to break down my report by the age and then by the patient's gender that's assigned in the system. Next step along is where we can be more particular. So in the criteria section here, we'll get to add more flavours in. So again, if I were to just click finish on this report, it's still going to show me every patient that was registered this month. Despite breaking it down, it's still going to show me everything. So the criteria is where we can get really picky and say, only show me where the client is aged, equal to or greater than, for example, 15. So that means it's only going to show me anyone that's over the age of 15. On the left-hand side, we've got the option to say and or. So we can toggle. So we could say, show me anyone that's over the age of 15. However, if they are female, let's disregard the first section. So that's all it's given us the option to do. So if we kept it on and, we could say, and show me where, for example, their gender is male. So it's not going to show me any females in the system. You can put as many requirements in here as you want. And don't forget, this is also allowing you to be particular on your client profile section. So where you've got source of introduction occupation, you'll have the option to add to that table there. So right at the very bottom here, we've got the option to add to favourites. So this button here. So just going back to where we were saying you've got your favourites section, this will allow us to, now we've put our own stamp into it, so now we've put our own requirements in and our own criteria, we'll be able to say, great, I want to run that on a regular basis. So let's save my requirements and my particulars here. So all I'm going to do is say PPS report, and I can also assign it under a category. Now this category section here is free text. So this means that you've got your option to add your own category here. So if I put into here, let's say PPS, for example, that's going to add another category, another list effectively. Finally, we've got our available to, and this is allowing us to say only show it to a particular practitioner or only show it to a particular group of people. So you might want to say only show it to all practitioners or only make it available to all managers in the system. So if we click OK here, and we just close this section, going back to our favourites here, you can see I've now got my PPS report available here. So that's allowing me to click on run and it will take me back to that section. So if I were to just open that again, it's going to take me back to my criteria here. So you can see it's just saved all those particulars that I put in the first place. So moving along to the final section here, we've got our print preview options. Now this is just what you want to show on your report. So do you want to show the client's address, the contact numbers, their date of birth? And you've also got a couple of other extras that we can toggle on. So we could say only show the number of appointments or only, do show their account balance and so on. So the final step now is to just click finish on this report. So when we click on finish, it will run to and produce a report of all data that matches. So because I've not got any data in the system that matches, it's telling me that I've got no records. So all I'm going to do now is go back and just tailor the report once more. So because just this is a demo database, we're just going to go back and take the date range out, so it should pull through. So you can see now that I've clicked finish, it will pull through a list of all my clients. So I've got some results in my database. So the next step is to say how you want to view this information. So you can see at the very bottom here, we've got preview, print, mail merge, save as file, Excel, or browse. Now the preview option is just that. So all it's going to do is open up in a PPS format like so. And you can see it's broken it down by those breakdown options. So I said break it down first of all by age and then by gender. And it's showing me the client's name, date of birth, contact details, and address details as I specified. Now, you can preview it like this if you wanted to, and you can print it off and it will look like that preview pane. So it will just print off and into that same format. The other options here are just giving you a bit more information, a bit more option to use this data for. So I could choose to mail merge it. Now with mail merging, you'll have the option to produce it to a PPS mail merge and then send out an activity template to everyone in that list. So for example, if we'd have done a report on people who haven't been back into the clinic for the last 6 months, we may well want to do a mail merge now and send out a nice email to say, here's 10% off, let's get you back in to the clinic. The next option along is to save as PDF or file. So this is just allowing us to export the data to a PDF format. And then finally, we've got the Excel option. Now with Excel, this gives us the option again to be a lot more particular. So what this is saying here is, do you want to customize what data you export into Excel? So it's asking us to create a column list. Now these lists, you'll have a few standard ones or a few stock ones that are already in the system, but you can create new ones if you wanted to. Now the final option at the very bottom there is no column list, just report the columns. So with that option, all that's doing is just showing you everything that was shown in the preview pane. So it would just show you their client name, date of birth, work number, phone number, and so on. Now, if I were to create my own column list, all we're going to do is click on Modify. And this takes us to a table selection. Now, it looks a lot more daunting than what it actually is involved. So all it's going to do, if I just call this PPS report list, it's asking us to select what information we want. So first of all, we've got the tables. So we've got the client table, the appointment table, the activities table, and so on. So if we select the client table, underneath you'll see I've got our fields from the client's table. So if I were to go back a step and click on appointment, you'll see that changes, the available fields change. So going back to the client section, if we were to scroll down here, you'll see we've got the option to export whatever information we want of the client's details screen. So if I want the date of birth, all we do is arrow that along. Same for email address, arrow that across. And this is just allowing us to build the list of columns that will be produced in my Excel output screen. So working our way down here again, we also have source of introduction, for example. So we'll just arrow that across as well. And we have the occupation. So if I were to just go for client occupation, and all that's doing is just building that list for us. So you can have as many as you want in there. And don't forget as well, you can add whatever information you want from other tables as well. So if you wanted their last appointment date, for example, or their charges, you can export that as well. So if we were to just save that and go back to create Excel output, all that's going to do is now purge that data, and you'll see at the very bottom here, I've got the option to open up my Excel spreadsheet that it's produced. So you can see here, all it's done is dump those the data that I required into the relevant columns. So I've got first of all date of birth, then email address, then source of introduction, and then the occupation. And that's all there is to it. So it's just being a bit more particular about what data you want to get out into Excel. If you just want the information that was in the preview screen, as I say, just go for the report, no columns or no preference, basically. So going back to our reports here, now that we're happy with the basic concepts of the reports wizard, we're just going to go through the extra options in here. So as I say, we've got some stock reports that are already built in PPS for you to have a play about with, but all of these are still going to be customizable, so you can still put your own stamp on them with the reports wizard. So we could have this report here, which is a really useful one, which is clients who are in current treatment with no future appointments booked. So if you're using treatment episodes within PPS, this will allow us to see anyone that has sessions that are remaining. So perhaps they've got 3 sessions left of their 6-session allocation, but they haven't got a future appointment booked. So anyone that's going to accidentally breach their session limit. So all that would do is show us anyone that's not got a future appointment booked, and we could again choose to mail merge or choose to send out a letter or an email to say let's get you booked in again, rather than them falling off the list. Clients who have DNA'd and not rebooked. So again, your non-returners from DNAs, you'll be able to send out an email, letter, however you want to get people booked back in. Moving along, we also have our activities section. Now, this one is pretty scarce because there's not too much reporting that's available on the number of emails that are sent or the number of letters that you send through the system, etc. However, this system user activity report is quite useful for people that have quite big practices or a lot of admin staff. If we were to just run that for this year, all it does is exports to Excel for us, and you'll see it tells me the names of each practitioner or the names of each user that has been logged into PPS, how many hours they've been logged in, and of those hours, how many appointments they've added, changed, how many letters they've added, how many emails they've added, and so on. So it's just giving you a bit of an overview as to how busy they've actually been within the PPS system versus their hours that they've been logged in. Again, it's just quite a useful way if you've got quite a lot of admin staff, just to make sure that the people are inputting on a regular basis. Moving along to the accounts section. Now, the accounts section is pretty lengthy because a lot of the reporting within PPS is going to surround the accounts. So starting from the top here, we've got 4 reports, which are the accounts reports, charges reports, invoice reports, and payments reports. Now, these 4 are probably your key reports when it comes to doing the accounts. The accounts report encompasses the other 3. So it encompasses all the charges, invoices, and payments. So if I were to just click run on that and do that for this year, you'll see what it opens up to here is just everything. So all the accounts, every interaction that you've had with patients, with third parties in PPS will all be encompassed into here. So even if they are part paid, fully paid, or not paid at all, it will all be shown into here. So this is quite a useful report to run and export to Excel, for example, if you're inputting into another accounting software or if you're giving it to your bookkeeper and so on. Now, going back to the other 3, we've got charges, invoices, and payments. So this is just going to give you an independent overview. So the charges report, for example, if we were to open that, this will give you the option to say, only show me charges that haven't been invoiced yet. So for example, any insurance billing that you're doing, this will show you what you're expected to make, even though they haven't been invoiced as of yet. So before you've done your end of month run. Working our way through here, again, you've just got your normal reports wizard. So we've got date range, breakdown, criteria, and so on. So we can just add to this reports wizard or add to our particulars as we want to. So if we were to just finish this report and preview, you'll see again, all this is doing is showing me anyone that has been had a charge raised in the system. So all the charges, all the patients, and the total amount. The next one that I want to go through is our payments report, because this one is quite useful at the end of day especially. So again, I'm going to open that up. In my select screen, it's asking me to show at the moment payments that have been allocated, part allocated, and not allocated. So up to you what your preference is. So we're going to include them all. And in our date range, I'm just going to go for this year, but you may want to say just for today or just for yesterday or this week, for example. Now in our breakdown option, we're going to choose to break it down first of all by payment method. So this will break it down into all the credit card payments we've had, all the cash payments we've had, and so on. And then we have a second option. So we could choose to break it down by another means if needs be. I'm going to keep that blank for now though. And finally, in our criteria, we can be a bit more particular. So we could say, well, don't show the payment methods does not contain check. So I don't want to be concerned about any check payments at the moment. So it's not going to include those on the reports. So really useful if you've got a particular payment method like vouchers or free, etc., that you don't want to include in your payment method report. So if I were to just finish that off and just preview, you'll see again in my screen it's broken it down. So it's showing me all the payments I've had, but it's breaking it down into those different bands. So I've got all the backs payments I've had through, all the credit card payments, and then all the cash payments. So as I say, this could be a useful one for at the end of the day or week, just to make sure that what's in the system reflects what's in your bank account. The next one along is our practitioner commission report. Now, commission within PPS, you've got two options. The first option is to add a default commission rate, and that's through when you first add your practitioner into PPS, you'll have seen you've got the option to just put a default percentage. So if I said Joe Bloggs gets 10% of absolutely anything that he does within PPS, that's just going to calculate an overall default 10% rate. The secondary option is within your lookup tables, where you can be a bit more particular. So you can put a percentage rate. So you could say they get 10% of all sales that they do under the branch of stock. However, you can also put fixed rates in. So you could say for Joe Bloggs, he has a 10% rate of all stock. He has a fixed rate of £5 per massage he does. And he also earns 50% of every physiotherapy treatment that he does in the system. So you've got the option to be a bit more kind of fluid with what commission rates you're putting in per practitioner. So you can put as many in as you want. So the practitioner commission report is just going to take into effect those rates that you've put in at the very beginning. And if I were to just run that again and preview, it will tell you at the very end the rate of commission, so how much that each practitioner has earned in the system. Now, on its own like that, it's not the easiest kind of commission report to view. So if we were to go back to our reports wizard, in our breakdown section here, I can be a bit more particular. So I can say break it down by practitioner and then by charge type, for example. So if you're offering different rates per group, so a 10% rate per physiotherapy or 5% per massage, etc. Going back to the select screen, one thing I forgot to touch on there was the commission based upon section. So PPS will allow you to work out your commission if you pay your practitioners on when the charge is raised, or if you pay them when the invoice has been raised, or you can work out the commission only when a payment has been allocated to that invoice. So it won't take into effect anything that hasn't been paid at that stage. So you've got the option here to just filter on what you need. So if I were to now click on finish and just preview that, you'll see it now breaks it down into a bit of an easier read. So I've got Alan Davies, and I've got for all stock how much he's earned, all treatment how much he's earned, and then if I move across here, then we move into the clinical assistant and the next practitioner along, so Laura Temple, for example. So all that's going to do is, again, itemize it all for you, and at the very end here it will tell you the commission of how much each practitioner has earned. You do have the option, going back a step again, in the print preview options to remove the net value, so how much the patient has paid. And again, that just gives you the option to then print that off and give it to each practitioner as remittance, for example. Next one along is our age debt report. Now we have two of these. We've got the age debtors report and we have the list of debtors at an end of period. These two differ very slightly. So the age debtors report is going to show you here and now what's outstanding in the system. So if I were to run that and just click OK, you'll see it breaks it down into different time bands for me. So I've got 0 to 30 days, 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90, and so on. So what it's going to show you is everything that's outstanding or hasn't got a payment allocated to it as of yet. You do have the option to change those time bands as well. So if we were to open that up into our reports wizard, you've got your breakdown section here where you can change the time bands to whatever sees fit for you guys. So if you work better with you chase invoices after 14 days, you can change those bands to whatever is necessary. Now, going back to this one here, the way that differs, the list of debtors at an end of period is a snapshot in time. So it will show you if your financial year, let's say, is April to April, we could run that report up until April this year. And even if the invoice has now been paid, so it was settled after April, if it was outstanding before then, it will tell you so. So it will it will base the date range on the payments that have come in effectively. Moving on to the next section here, which is our expenditure report. So this one here is just basing on the expense management screen in PPS. So under the account section at the top here, you've got an expenditure management screen. If you use that in PPS, all this is going to do is just a mirror image. So it's just going to do a data dump for you to export into Excel and do whatever you need to with it. Then we move into our stock reports. So we've got our stock levels, stock batch, and stock movement reports. So if you use PPS quite comprehensively for your stock, you'll be able to run reports here to show you everything that's running low, anything that needs is going to expire soon, etc. So if I were to open up the stock levels report here, you'll see I've got on my select screen now to show only stuff that is below or at minimum level. So I could say I'm not bothered about anything that we've got quite a lot of. All I'm going to do is run a report to see what we need to reorder at this point. If you're not using stock at the moment in PPS and you want to, it's all available under the lookup tables section. The next one is our batch details section report, and this is just going to again allow you to see what's in what you have in each batch. So again, if you're using PPS quite comprehensively for your batches, where you can pop expiry dates in and batch numbers, this is just going to reflect what's in PPS. So how many drugs you have under one particular batch number, how many creams you have that are due to expire soon, and so on. And the stock movement report is, again, just going to show you what's been sold. So who it was dispensed to or who it was sold to and how many you have remaining. Then finally, we've got our three other reports here. So we've got our banking and reconciliation report. So that's available if you're using the banking and reconciliation screen within PPS. So that will just show you again, hopefully it will just mirror your bank account. So it will show you what's been put into PPS and when it was reconciled into your bank. Payment allocation report. So that's a really useful one if you have a lot of payments from third parties. That will just show you of the £3,000 you received from Medisure, for example, it will then tell you how where that was allocated to, so which insurance companies paid which invoices off in your list. And then finally, you've just got an estimates list report, which is just going to show you all the quotes that you've raised within PPS. Next one along is our clinical section. Now, the clinical section is mainly based around the treatment episode side of things. So if you're not using treatment episodes within PPS at the moment, it might be something that you want to consider later on if you're wanting to get things like your KPIs out of PPS. So the first one along is our treatment episode Excel list. All this does, if I were to run that for, again, this year, it would just export everything to Excel and allow me to do whatever I want with it. So you can see, if you're used to using treatment episodes in PPS, this will make a little bit more sense. All it's doing is just effectively a data dump. So everything that's in your treatment episode, it's dumping out into PPS. So you've got the client's name, their age, their GP, the consultation date, the name of the treatment episode, and effectively what's been added into that treatment episode. So the referral source, who they were referred by, the date of referral to the start date. And you can see it calculates your referral to start date in weeks there. And it will also calculate the booked to appointment in weeks as well. And then finally, you've got your diagnosis code at the very end. So it'll give you your ICD 9 and 10 codes or your Orchard codes, whatever you're using in PPS. It will just export into this Excel for you. So really useful if you're wanting to calculate your average KPIs and so on. Next one along is our statistics Excel summary. Now, this one is very similar to the Excel that we've just looked at, but it just does all the statistics for you. So it will just work it all out for you, so you don't have to do any analysis yourself. So if we just go back into this, you'll see it gives me a summary here. So it tells me the number of new referrals that I've had versus the number of follow-ups. Of those, the number of DNAs that we had and the number that were reopened. And on the right-hand side, it's telling me the number of completed episodes that I've had, average number of consultations that each treatment episode has had, and the average revenue that we've made from each treatment episode that we've raised within PPS, so from each referral that we've had. Moving along to these tabs at the very bottom, if I move into the clinical section, this is just, again, like the breakdown within the reports wizard. So it's just breaking it down by treatment category. So how many different categories we've treated, how many different areas we've treated, and how many diagnoses we've treated. And then in the referral section, again, each referral source, referral company, and contact. So you'll be able to see how many, on average, referrals you get each month from Dr. Jones, how many you get from Medisure, how many you get from each different insurance company, and so on. And then finally, moving into our completed screen here, this is giving us the average number of consultations and the average monetary value that we've had by completed episodes. So by outcome, by discharge status, by discharge letter, referral source, and so on. So you can see as I'm working away down here, it's just got all the different options here. So it will just tell you per diagnosis, the average number of consultations and the average value that's made or brought into the clinic. Moving along here, we then have our statistics report and our list report. Now, these two are the ones that will open up within PPS. So these are giving you the option to add to the criteria. So it'll open up within an Excel, a reports wizard, sorry. So again, we've got our reports wizard here, so we can say only show me current treatment episodes, so things that are still on the go that haven't been completed yet. And then we can move into our date range to say only show me treatment episodes that were raised this year, last month, this week, and so on. In the breakdown tab, this is where we could be a lot more particular. So we could say break it down by diagnosis and then by treatment category, for example. So you've got all the different areas that are part of the treatment episode here. So again, just useful for when you come to do your KPIs, you can see how many treatments you have referred to you for one particular injury, how many particular injuries you treat each year, and so on. And then in your criteria tab, we can again be more particular. So we can say, only show me a particular diagnosis. So only show me treatment episodes where the diagnosis was equal to 1, or where the treatment category was equal to legs, or it was an elbow injury, and so on. So as we're working our way through here, we can just be a lot more particular with these. So if we were to finish this and just preview, again, it opens up, as I say, in PPS, and it's just giving you a little table. So each individual treatment episode will be itemized here. And again, it will give you the referral date, the start date, and the end date. And on the right-hand side, it gives you the average revenue that you've made. So whether it was coming from a client or a third party. Then with this section here, where you've got all the different numbers, 1s and 2s, this is giving you the number of consultations that they've had. So the total number of consultations that they've had per treatment episode, how many they've got remaining in this final column here, and how many consultations they've had per between this date range. So if you've done a date range for last month, it will show you how many actual consultations they had that were treated within that particular date range. Again, you've got the option to export this if you wanted to. So we could export it to Excel to do some further analysis with, or you could export it to PDF, for example. Now, the last one here with the kind of treatment episode reports is your list report. And that is exactly the same as the Excel list, but it just opens up within PPS. So if I were to just run that this year, again, it just gives you a list of all your treatment episodes that you've had in the system. Again, because it opens up within PPS, you've got the ability to customize it, so you can put your own requirements in there. The last two, we've got treatments that have reached their estimated end date. So this is still based on the treatment episode. When you open up a treatment episode, at the bottom left-hand of the corner of the screen, you'll have an estimated end date section. Now you can use that, it's a manual entry. You could use that to say, I want the patient to be finished by the 30th of July, for example. And this report will just show you anyone that has breached that date. So you'll be able to keep an eye on people that are expiring shortly or have gone over that date that you expect them to be finished. Really useful if you've, again, insurance referrals where they say you have to have treated the patient within 6 weeks, for example. The last one here is your consultation statistics, and this is just, if you're not using treatment episodes, this will just tell you the number of consultations that you've treated in the clinic, regardless of the actual treatment episode in the system. So if you're not using them in the system, you'll be able to run that one there, and that will just show you the numbers that you're treating each month, week, or so on. Finally, moving into our appointments section here. This one here is just going to surround everything that you've added into the diary. So first one you've got here is your appointments diary list report. So if we were to open that one up into our reports wizard, you'll see the first option is our select screen, and it's saying, do you want to show appointments that were marked as arrived, being seen, completed? And you've also got the option to say, only show me, for example, appointments that were marked as DNA. So this is a good one here to see all your DNAs that you've had in the diary. You've also got a few extras here. So you've got other appointments with no status. So that's if you're not using the 4 status indicators at the top right hand of the diary, where you say mark as arrived, being seen, and completed. Any blocked out time. So blocked out time includes things where you're putting in staff holidays, sickness leave, admin time, etc. And diary events, where you can say all the classes that you run, all the workshops that you run, and so on. So if you are using diary events in PPS, you'll be able to report on it here as well. The walk-in appointments at the very bottom here, it's probably very scarce that you'll be using this section, but it's just if you have, you use the walk-in list in PPS rather than the actual diary. Again, you'll be able to report on that there. So if I were to just show everything from a moment, moving into our date range, again, we can say, show me all the appointments that we've had last week, month, year, and so on. Then we've got our breakdown. So we could break it down, first of all, by appointment type. And then we could break it down by, let's go for diary user. So here we'll see each appointment type and who's treated them. So how many practitioners are treating the initial assessments, how many are treating follow-ups, and so on. Then in the criteria, again, we could again be a lot more particular. So we could say only show me particular appointment types. So only show me where the appointment type contains the text initial, I might want to say. So it'll only show me my initial assessments that I've had. So if I just go for initial here, when we finish that report off here and just preview, you'll see it's broken it down for me. So I've got, first of all, my initial physio assessment. Then I have Alan Davies and all the patients that he's treated under that. Then we have the clinical assistant, and then finally we have Arnold James. So it's just giving you an idea of who treats the most initial assessments, who treats the most follow-ups, massage, and so on. And as I say, because you've got the flexibility with the breakdown option to put your own stamp in it, you can get whatever results you want out. So if you wanted to, rather than see practitioners, you might want to choose to see how many assessments are per location. You can break it down by per location, you could break it down by department, and so on. Then we have our stock reports here. So a few of these reports have kind of just been pre-compiled for you. So you've got appointments with no charges invoiced or payments against them, or appointments with no charges raised. This one is really useful at the end of the day or week if you've got admin staff that want to run this, just to make sure that no one's snuck out the door without paying, or we've not forgotten to raise charges to the insurance company or to the third party on their behalf. Then we have the appointments with no consultation notes recorded. So one for your practitioners to make sure that each appointment that we've added into PPS has a clinical note stamp against it. Again, that's just going to show up anyone that hasn't had a consultation written on that day for them. Revenue forecast from appointments. This one here is giving you just a little idea of how much money you're likely to make based on what's in the diary for next month, week, or year, and so on. So if I were to just run that, just to give you an idea, yeah, let's go for this year, and just preview. You'll see it breaks it down by the appointment type, and it tells me the actual revenue that we would make and the forecasted revenue. Now, my forecast is blank because I've gone for this year, but it would tell you based on what's in the diary for next week, so all your future appointments, how much it's likely to give you. And then finally, we've got our diary statistics reports. So the final three here are all based on the stats in the system. So your diary statistics report is one report that is really key, that you should be running on a regular basis. This one here, if I were to just run that straight out and just go for this year, what it's showing us here is broken down on the left, each practitioner. On the right-hand side, it's showing us for each practitioner how many hours they were scheduled to be in the clinic. Of those hours, how many were blocked out for sickness, absence, admin time, whatever you use your block out times for. And then finally in column C, you've got how many hours have actually been available. So how many have been available to have actual physical bookings in the diary. Moving along to the next column along, you've got your appointments section. So of the available hours, how many hours have actually been filled up with appointments and the quantity of appointments they've had. Same for diary events and same for DNAs. On the far right-hand side, you've got your percentages. So it will then tell you how busy your diary has been with your occupancy rate and the percentage of DNAs that each practitioner is getting on that particular date range. Okay. At the very bottom, it will give you a report total. So for the clinic as a whole, their occupancy rate and the DNA rate. Now, with this report, you can open it up into the reports wizard and you can change the breakdown value. So you might be more concerned with, if you've got multi-locations, viewing the occupancy rate by location, for example. So you could break it down by diary user and then by location, or just by location, just by department, and so on. So you've got all these different options here. So if I were to finish that again, let's just go for this year, you'll see it's now telling me for each practitioner, and underneath each practitioner, all the locations that they treat at. So how many hours they've been scheduled in, how busy their diary has been, and so on. The next report is our appointment statistics report. Now, the appointment statistics report is based on those 4 ticks at the top right-hand corner of the diary. So again, where you're marking a patient as arrived, being seen, completed, and so on. So if I just run that for this year again, you'll see here, it's telling me the times that we stamped them as arrived, and the time that we stamped the patient as being seen, and then the minutes in between. Same for completed, so the time that we stamp them as completed, and then it will tell you also the time between, the average consultation time effectively. So the time between them being seen and completed. Now, one thing to bear in mind here is that it is always down to kind of manual input. So in concern to the consultation time, the patient may have finished their consultation, come out and had a chat for 10 minutes at the reception desk. So it's always worthwhile just taking that into account with the completed times, rather than having a look at each individual one. At the very bottom, however, of this screen, it gives you the average number. So the average waiting time and the average consultation time and the maximum amount, so that you can see at a glance how well each week has gone or month has gone. Again, you've got the option to break it down by practitioner, by location, department, and so on. So if you wanted to see how well each one is performing at a glance, you can do. The final one here is our detailed diary statistics report. Now, this one here is exactly the same as that diary statistics report that we've just seen, but it exports it into Excel for me. So if I just run that, you'll see what it does. I probably shouldn't have chosen this year because it's going to take a while. But all it's doing in here, rather than taking it into a table format that we had before, it's doing a data dump into Excel for me. So it's going to give me a column key so that I can see all the scheduled hours, the number of treatments that they've done outside of the clinic hours, inside of clinic hours, and so on. So if we were to just wait for that to export into Excel for me, I'll be able to show you a little bit further as what that's going to give you. All this is allowing you to do, again, is a little bit more closer analysis if you needed to. So again, if you've got quite a busy clinic, in terms of the number of practitioners and the number of locations that you have, it might be worthwhile using the detailed stats report to get a further idea of things. So you'll see here, as I said, it's just showing you the number of all the diary users, the rooms, locations that they've had. And along the right-hand side, you've got the number of hours that they've been scheduled in clinic, scheduled hours, and so on. Now, each one of these has a column key. So on the right-hand side where you've got column key here, you can be more particular. So you can see the number of DNAs that you've had within scheduled hours, number of DNAs outside of scheduled hours, number of diary events, and so on. So it just goes through, it's quite an exhaustive list of different options there for you to look at. Okay, so the next one that we're going to go into, so we've finished the basic reporting side of things on here. We're just going to touch upon the custom form reports before we finish off. Now, the custom form reports in PPS can be found back in the reports tab at the top here, and the third section along, which is custom forms reports. Now, this is all based upon having a custom form and using a custom form within consultation in PPS. So just to give you an idea, you've got your option here to complete a form. So if I was to just choose a patient at random, when you go to complete a form here, you've got general assessment forms where you can enter values and so on. And with them being custom forms, you've got the option to create your own in here. If you don't know how to use custom forms or aren't using them at the moment in PPS, feel free to jump onto another webinar that's going to be more tailored to that. So going back to the custom form reports here, if we were to create a new one, it takes me to this section here. Now, it's very, very similar to the reports wizard that we've just been going through. So I can give it a report name. So I can call this PPS report example. And then we've got the style of report that's going to be required. So do we want a list of clients that match a selected criteria, details from a selected form, or results from a selected question? The difference between the three, the majority of the time, you're going to choose details from a selected form because you're going to be basing your report on one form that you use in clinic. List of clients from a matching selected criteria effectively means if you use three, let's say three different custom forms, you use a different form for initial assessment, a different for follow-ups, and a different for discharge. You can say, work out if they've answered all three effectively. So it's just giving you the ability to vary it. And finally, you've got results from a selected question. So if you only want to see if they answer one particular question in your custom form, then we can just disregard the rest of it. So if we go for details from a selected form, we then select the form that we want to use. So we're going down again here. We've just got all our different custom forms in the system. So if I go for my acupuncture case history form, then we have our output options. So one thing to bear in mind with custom form reports is that all the data is always exported to Excel. So nothing previews within PPS itself. Now that does give you the freedom, however, to be, again, more particular about what data you want to export. So going back to where we were before when you can export to Excel in the reports wizard and you choose your column order, so what information you want to export, exactly the same here. So you've got your client fields and your custom form fields. So with your client fields, if we choose update here, it's just taking us back to that table. So it's just saying what information do you want to export onto Excel. So I'm going to pull through the client's date of birth. I might choose to pull through their email address, and let's go for their full name. Okay. Then we have the custom form questions. So click on update here. This takes us to our acupuncture form. So this is just the questions that are in that form that we use. So here we can just choose to add all the questions. So I just want to see all the answers to every single question in the form. Or we could say, I only want to see particular answers. So I might just want to see their answer to digestion and to exercise and so on. So you can just double click on each question that you want to add in. Finally, at the very bottom here, we have our criteria. Now this is just the same as the reports wizard criteria. So if I just update here, it's just giving me the option to say, only show me the patients that answered this to general happiness, and you can just put your value in here. You've also got the option to add extras here, so we could say only show me where their main complaint contains the text burstis or inflammation or whatever you're wanting to report on. So just remember that it's just based on the values that you enter into your custom form, so only you will know what values you're putting in here if it's free text. Okay. And then once you've selected your criteria, we can save that and it will be there as a report that we can run at a later stage. So if I just clicked on run here now, it will take me to a particular date range and it will just export to Excel for me. So if I were to open up an Excel here, you'll see it just exports all that data. Now, as it happens, we haven't filled out an acupuncture form, so it's just hasn't got any values, but yours will just export with all the data contained, so each form that's been filled in. Okay. And as I say, because it's custom forms reports, you just save them as favourite effectively. So they'll be there for you to use at a later stage. So you'll always be able to come back in here and run these reports. So that finishes off today's session with the reporting side of things. As I say, at the end of today's session, we will send out an email for some feedback and also with a link for you guys to access and re-watch today if you wanted to. If you have got any questions, feel free to send them through into the chat. If not, we can help answer those on the support team or we'll answer them outside of today's workshop this morning. Hopefully that's given you a good insight into the reporting side of things. If you are joining us on other webinars as well throughout the week, then that will give you a good idea of what to report on as well. So thank you for attending. As I say, any questions, feel free to send them through the chat. That will be open for the next 5 minutes or so anyway. Thank you. Goodbye.